Hello guys and welcome to you in this tutorial. In this tutorial we are going to talk about reusability for user interfaces when we are programming with Python. So in a previous tutorial we have talked about Flet and the basics of a Flet, which is a library which is based on Flutter, the toolkit created by Google for user interfaces. But right now we would like to go a little bit more advanced when we are programming using Flet, because the way we were programming lacks the reusability and the extendability when we are creating code. So if we want to extend our application, we would have problems actually, because the code was not designed to be extendable. This is why we are going to integrate some object-oriented programming into our previous tutorial to create reusable widgets which we can use throughout our code easily. This will make maintaining our applications way easier. And as usual, we will be implementing a project along learning all those pieces. So let's get started.
Alright, so we are ready now to explain our tasks app. In a previous tutorial, we have created this section right here, where we had an app where we can write our tasks, click on add, and we would see the task being added to a list like this. Now we have modified this and we added two more buttons. One of them is an edit button and the other is a delete button, so that right now we can edit a task that we have already added, or we can delete it entirely. We also have this check mark that we can use in order to check if a task is completed or not. Okay, this is what we have created before, but we did not utilize any reusability when we were coding. So we were writing functions that were creating our widgets, which can prove really inefficient when it comes to reusability and scalability. But right now we are going to utilize some object-oriented programming techniques in order to create a more reusable widgets for our app. Now here is how the app will operate. We have a text box, we can write our task, we click on add and we get this task like this, okay? We can click on check mark here to indicate that the task is completed. Next, if we click on edit, the whole view for this widget right here is going to change. Now we are going to be able to modify whatever task we have, and we can click on save when we are done in order to store what we have modified. So we click on save and we would be done. Alright, next we can delete this task that we have created by clicking on the delete button. Now as you can see, the app is a little bit more complicated than before. And the way we are going to divide this is by creating actually two classes here. One class is going to be handling adding a new task, and it will be handling this widget, right? So this task plus the button will be a widget in a separate class, and this task right here with the edit and delete button along with the check mark are going to be a separate class, meaning that it's a separate widget. So whenever we want to add a new widget, all we need to do is just call that class and the widget will be ready. When we use object-oriented programming, managing multiple tasks like this will be easy. We can easily delete them, we can easily edit them, but if we use functional programming, like just creating functions without classes, it will be really hard to delete and edit separate tasks like this, because we need to pass references for every task to our app in order to determine what we want to edit or what we want to delete. This will make references spread out throughout the code and it will convert it to a really messy code. This is why we are going to learn the correct methods to program, putting in mind as a priority reusability and scalability. So let's take a look. Okay, so let us start coding. What we have here, we have imported Flet as FT because the same as the previous tutorial, we are going to be utilizing Flutter for Python or a library that is called Flet. Now Flet is actually a library that is based on Flutter, so it implements a lot of the Flutter functionalities already. It's a smaller subset, but it does a great job actually, and it is very handy to use. So first, as usual, we define our main. If you never used the Flet before, I highly recommend that you check out our previous tutorial where we have started with the Flet from scratch. So right now we have our main function right here, and we are passing page to it, and we are naming the app, tasking app by PythonDude. We have the window width and height defined, and we have the background color. Okay, now let us get started with creating some classes. We are going to define a class right here that will inherit from ft.userControl, and I'm going to call it tasks app, and it will inherit from ft.userControl. UserControl will force us to implement a method that is called build, so we need to create build here. So this is my build function, and this function is going to return to me the first row, and this row will consist of the text that I would like to type, so the text field, and the add button. So let me show you. This class will handle these two. It will put them in one row because as you can see they are on the same row. So we will be creating a text field and a button, and we are going to return them. Also, this class is going to be acting as a container whenever we add tasks. So this class will serve two purposes. It will create the first widget and it will keep track of all the tasks that I would like to create. Okay. First, I'm going to define that text field. So I'm going to say self.text field is equal to ft.text field like this. And let's define the width of this text field to be around 350, like this. Now I'm going to create the button, so I'm going to say self.add_button. You can name it whatever you want. Now we need to use floating action button this time, okay? It's a type of button that we can choose an icon for actually. So ft.floating action button, and we will pass icon is equal to ft.icon, and the icon shape will be the add. So there is a library of icons that is embedded in Flet, and we can choose whatever icon we want. I'm gonna choose the add icon. Let me stop here for 1 second and just define all the functions that I'm gonna need. Remember, right now when we are creating a widget, it's like a living creature. Meaning that we are creating here like a small creature actually, we are building it and we can make it do actions. Okay, so here are the actions or methods that I would like to implement. So I have a method that's called add_click, meaning that I have clicked on the add button, so I would like to do something when I do that. Initially all of them will be empty, I'm gonna fill them up one by one. Then I have task delete, okay. Again, I will be passing self to it. Now, along with self, we would like to pass here the task name. All right? So whenever we create a new task, we are going to pass it to this delete task. Stuff will make sense when we progress a little bit further. All right. Now for add click, I would also like to add a parameter here, and I will tell you why we need to add it. So let me put pass here. Okay. Let's go back to our floating action button. Whenever we click on add button, I would like to call a function, which is the add click, meaning that I already clicked on add. To do that, we just need to say on_click, and we need to just name the function that we would like to trigger. This is kind of a callback call right here. So I need add click. Okay. But since we are in a class, we need to say self.add_click. Okay. So far, so good. The reason we added this parameter right here is when we are calling through a callback, we are going to be passing the user control to this add click. Okay? So whenever you say on click and you define a function right here, as a callback, it will automatically pass the user control to this add click. This is why we need to add a parameter here. And here we don't need to pass any parentheses because this is a callback actually. We are going to put this text field and add button into a row. So I'm going to say task row is going to equal to ft.column. Now, why are we defining a column? Because if you take a look here, let me show you. Take a look here. We are adding this widget. Now, this widget is a row, right? Because we have two elements next to each other as a row. But since we are also adding elements. Vertically, this will convert it to a column, right? So we have a column, and in every entry of that column, we have a separate row, right? This is why we are creating a column first, and then we'll be adding this row to it. So we're creating a column, and I'm going to say here controls is equal to, what are we going to put in this column? Well, we need to put a row actually, right? The row that will contain the add button and the text field as we have discussed a few seconds ago. So let me expand this like this. I'm going to say here ft.row, and then I need to say controls is equal to, and then open a parenthesis, and let's say controls is equal to, open a parenthesis, then we'll say here self.text field, and we need to pass self.add button. So what we have done here, we created a text field, we created a button that will be triggering an add click function, which we will implement later, and we are creating a column that contains one row, right? What else will it contain? As I said, this class here is going to be registering every single task you add to your tasking app. So how about we create a variable here that is called tasks. So I'm going to say self.tasks is equal to ft.column. All right. Now this ft.column is going to be any task that we add. As we said, we will be adding them vertically, so we will add task 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And they will be all stored in that column. So if we go back here now, we have this column here, right? It contains the first row and it contains self.tasks. Okay, so every time we add a task, it's going to be added to this column right here, right? They will be stacked upon each other. Okay, so this is the skeleton of how the app will look like initially. Okay, now let's continue. How about we try to test this app out so that we can go step by step without falling into a lot of errors, so that if we have any errors, we can fix them on the go. But before we do that, we need to return from this build the row that we have created. To do that, we just need to say return task row like this. And now we can call this app. I'm going to say here tasking app is equal to task, the name of my class, app. So we are creating an object now. And next we need to say page.add tasking app, right? So whenever we have a user control object, we just pass it to the page add and it will be displayed on our page. Okay, we are ready to go. Let me run this. And here we go. As you can see, we can type our task, but nothing will happen because the add click is still empty. I'm not going to be worrying about organizing the look of it right now. We can do that actually later. What I want to do now is to build the skeleton, then we can go on beautifying this app. Now we can continue. I'm going to be leaving add click and task delete empty for now. Because in order to complete this step, we need to create the class for the task widget itself. What do I mean by the task widget itself? This is a whole widget containing a checkbox, a text, and 2 buttons. This will be a separate class. And what I'm going to be doing here is that whenever we hit on click, I would like to create a new object of that class that I am about to implement right now. Okay, so right now when we do that, that widget we have created will be very easy to deal with. Let's leave those empty for now and let us implement the next class. The next class is going to be called task. So here I'm going to say class task, and the same as before, it will inherit from ft.user control. Okay, now I'm going to be passing a couple parameters here, which are the task name and the task delete. So let's not worry about the task delete right now. We're going to explain it later. But the task name is going to be important because since we are going to be creating a widget here, whatever text we type here need to be moved here, right? So we need a mechanism to take the text that was given here and add it to the new widget. And this is why we need to pass the task name to this task class right here. The task name is actually nothing but the text that you have typed in as a user. Okay, so right now we are going to define the init. So we have underscores, double underscores, init, double underscores. And then we need to pass self and whatever parameters we need. As I said, we need the task name, which is the text you have typed in the first widget. And then we need task delete, which we will be explaining later. Okay? Now, as you know from object-oriented programming, since we are inheriting and we require to add extra parameters to our inherited class, we need to call the super keyword. So we need to say here super dot init like that, right? This init is going to take everything user control passes to it and it will add those two parameters to it as well. Okay, this is why we need the super. This is a very important concept in inheritance. Now we are going to create some class variables. We have self.task name is equal to task name. And we will do the same thing for the task delete. So we have self.task delete equal to task delete. We will handle task delete later. Okay, now since we are inheriting from user control, we must implement the method build, right? So let's implement build, pass self to it as usual. And now we are ready to create the widget. What does the widget contain? This widget contains checkbox, text field, and actually we can combine the checkbox and text field in one element because Flet allows us to do that. Then we have two buttons. But we need to notice one more thing, and it is the most important thing that this class should handle, and it is the view mode. If you take a look here, we have two views for this widget. The first view, when we have already typed in a task and it is being displayed. So this is the display mode. But here, when we hit on edit, we have a second mode, which is the edit mode, which here consists of a text field and a save button. Here, this is nothing but a checkbox and two buttons, but here we have a text field and one button, right? So we need to handle these two views. Actually, we are going to implement both views and we are going to hide one and show the other, okay? So let's say we created display view and edit view. Whenever we are in display, like in this state of the code, then we will be hiding the edit view. And when we are in the edit view, meaning we are in this view right here, we will be hiding the display view, which looks like this. Okay, so let us go and implement this. We are going to say self dot display task is equal to ft dot checkbox. So this is the checkbox we have. And instead of creating a text field, we can just pass a label. Okay, so here I'm going to say label is equal to whatever we have passed from here, right? We have typed in a text. Now I would like it to be in the task that I have created. Since I am passing it through task name, all I need to say here is just self.task name. Now we typed in a task. We passed it to the widget here and we are displaying it. And also we need to set the value to false, meaning that initially the box is not checked. Now, for the second mode, we have the edit name. So I'm going to here call a variable called self.edit name. And this edit name is nothing but ft.text field. Okay, I'm creating a text field so that, let me show you again. It is this text field in the edit mode. Whenever I hit on edit, I want to be able to write something. Unlike here, we are only displaying a regular text. Here, I would like to edit it, so I need a text field. And this is my text field right here. Okay, now let us implement the views. Okay, now that we are ready to create our views, let's start with the display view. So we have self.display view, and this will equal to ft.row, right? Because the view is a row, right? It contains the checkbox, it contains the buttons. So we are creating a row. We're going to say controls is equal to open a bracket. The first thing we need is actually this display task, meaning that we need the checkbox, right? The checkbox with the text next to it. So I'm going to say here self.display task. Now, the second element in this row is another row. Now you might ask, why would I add a row inside a row? Well, the second row will be containing the buttons like the delete and the edit. And since I am having them in a separate row, it will be easier to arrange them. Maybe to put the checkbox away from the buttons, maybe to put them next to each other. We will have control on how we will be arranging the buttons with the checkbox. So this is why I'm going to say here ft.row, open a parenthesis, say controls, equal, open a bracket, and now we will be passing our buttons. For the buttons, we will be using ft icon button. So I'm going to say ft.icon button. And here we will be passing ft.icons. The name of this icon, the one for edit, this button is for edit actually, is create underscore outlined. We need to define the onClick. So we're going to say onClick is equal to, let us define the dummy methods that we will use, okay? So we need three methods. One of them is called editClick, meaning that whenever I click on edit, I would like to execute this. Self and the user control need to be passed here. Pass. Next we have the save button. So I'm going to say here save click. Whenever we click on save in edit mode, this is what we will be triggering. So again, self and the user control. Let's make it empty for now. And finally, we have the delete. So we have delete click, meaning that we have clicked on delete. Again, we will be passing E here for the user control and pass. Now, since this button is for edit, I would like to call the edit click. So I'm going to say edit click. Okay. But since we are in a class, we need to say self.editClick. All right. So this is for my first button. Now I need a second button. I can copy all of this, okay? Put a comma here and add another button. But this button is going to be called delete. So here I'm going to say, instead of create, delete is the name of that icon actually. And on click, we are going to call, instead of edit, just delete, okay? And by that, we have created our widget for the display view. Now let's go and implement the edit view. I'm going to say self.edit view, right, is equal to ft.row. Now, this is the edit view, right? Let's go back. This is my edit view. And initially, it is hidden, right? So because when we add a task, we will be in this view. Are we editing? No. It means that whatever widget we create now is going to be hidden. How can we hide it? All we need to do is to pass a parameter for this row, which is visible equals false. So we have visible equals, meaning that, hey, initially this row is not visible. We are just creating it. We can enable it and make it visible later, but for now it is invisible. Okay, what's next? We have the controls. I'm going to say here controls is equal to the edit name, right? Edit name is a text field that we will use in order to type in what is the new task name. We have the edit name on that row, and we have one button, right? Take a look here. In the edit mode, we have only the save button, so we have one button. Let's put a comma and go one line down. I'm going to be copying this actually, okay, and paste it here. Now, what function should we call here? We need to call save click, meaning that we have clicked on save, and we would like to save whatever we have written there. So far, so good. Now, at the end, we will be returning something, right? We are going to return ft.column controls equaling to both views. We need to return the self.display view, and we need the self.edit view. Okay? So we created widgets, and now we are putting them in a column. And this makes sense. If we go back, we will see that this row, we can just put it in one column, right? So those are in one column, and it contains, this column contains both views, right? It contains this view and this view. If they were both visible, the app would look something like having this widget and this widget underneath it. So if we are not playing with visibility, we would have something like this. Two widgets under each other because we put them in one column when we were returning, right? That's the thing. Because we are playing with visibility, we can hide one and keep one. So in edit mode, we will be hiding this, deleting it, not deleting it, just hiding it, and vice versa when we are in display mode. Okay, so this is for the views now. Now we have created a task. We need to integrate it in the Tasks app, meaning that whenever we hit on the Add button, we would like to create a widget, which is this class. As you can see, this organizes our code a lot, because every widget now is like a living being. It's like a living creature. We can edit it, we can save it, we can delete it. It contains everything that we need in a chunk of code, and we can reuse it however we want. This is why whenever we click on add click right here in the tasks app, we are going to create an object of this task. How to do that? Well, let's remove this pass. And right here, we are going to say task is equal to task, open a parenthesis, and we are going to pass to it whatever we have typed in, right? We said that we type something and we pass it to this task widget. We typed here in the text field. So I'm going to say self.textField.value. Why did I say .value? Because text field is an object and I would like to get whatever value is typed inside it. So this is why I am extracting the value. And also I would need to pass task delete. Again, we will talk about task delete later. So I'm going to say here self.task delete. I am passing a function right here actually. After we do that, we are going to append that to the control. So I'm going to say self.tasks.controls.append task. Okay, we have appended this to our controller because we are adding to the page at the end outside the class. We say page add. Here we are accumulating all of our tasks, all the stuff that we would like to display in this controls. Okay, so as I said, this is the step before adding to the page. Now, whenever you add a task, you need to actually clear the text field, right? Because let's say you write a task, you clicked on add, you don't want that text that you have written to stick in the text field, right? You want it to be cleared so that you can write a new task. We can do that simply by just saying self.textField.value is equal to an empty string like this. Now we need to update, right? So we have appended. Now it's important to update. So I'm going to say self.update. Now this update function is going to make sure that all the stuff that you have added to controls are being applied, okay? And this update comes actually from user control. Since we are inheriting from user control, we are calling a method update that is from the main class of user control. So you might ask, where did this update come from? Well, it came from the user control here. And that should be it. Now let us test this out. If I run this, let's see if we have any issues. Let's write first task. And here we go. As you can see, this is my first task. We have the delete button, we have the edit button, and we have the check. And remember when I told you that we put those in a different row? Because as you can see now, they are very close to the task. At some point, I would like to put them maybe somewhere around here so that the app would look better. But as I said, I'm not going to be concerning about the looks of our app, as I would really want to build the skeleton first. Alright, so right now we are going to work on the edit method. Whenever we click on a task, we would like to actually be able to modify it. So what is the first step? Well, the first step is definitely to change visibility. To do that, we just need to say self.displayTask.label. The first step is to actually change visibilities because we would like now to show the edit mode instead of the display mode. We can simply say self.displayView is equal to false, meaning that we won't be showing the display view and we will be setting the edit view. Of course, here we need visible. Okay, and here we need the edit view.visible to equal true. We are hiding this view and we are showing this view instead. Well, what's next is I would like to take this text here and I would like to show it here instead, right? Because those are two different views. This box is not exactly this exact box, right? This is a different box, and I would like to take whatever text was here and show it right here. How can we do that? Well, I'm going to say self.edit name.value is equal to self.display task.label. What does this mean? Remember, what is edit name? Edit name is this text field that I am using in my edit view. It is this one, this text field. And display task is nothing but my checkbox, and I am accessing the label value, right? This is my checkbox, and this is the label value, whatever is inside this text field. So we are just assigning this value to this value. We are taking the display task text and putting it in the edit name text. And as usual, we just need to trigger update so that we can update the visibility. Whenever we try to edit any visibilities or values, we need to trigger update so those changes take effect. Okay, this is for the editing. Let's go and check it out. If I run this, now if I say task 1, add, edit, as you can see, everything has changed. I think this icon is wrong. We need to change it. That's fine. Now let's say this is task 700 instead. We did not actually implement the save click yet, so we need to implement it in order to the changes to take effect. But let me change the icon actually. Here it's not actually the delete icon. This one is going to be the done outline, so done. Let me test this out one more time. Again, task, add, edit, and here we go. Okay, so far so good. Now let's implement the save click. Whenever we click on save, we would like to save the changes. Okay, let's work on the save click. What do you think the save click is all about? Well, the save click is all about taking whatever text you typed here, copy it, and move it to this view, to this text field. Okay, so the same way we took the text from here to here, now we need to reverse this operation. And we need to disable this view and enable this display view. So it is just the opposite of editing. So first, let me copy these views. I can just paste them here simply and just reverse here, make the display view being true because I want to jump back to display, and make the edit view being false because I want to hide the editing. Now we need to reverse this operation as well. Okay, so I'm going to be taking the label from the display task and I'm going to assign it to the edit name. So whatever new name I have given, I would like to pass back to the text field of the display view. And we just need to update. Now let's test this out. I'm going to say here task 1, add it, edit. I'm going to call it task 100 and click on the check mark. And here we go. We have changed what we have written here. Let's try something else. Let's say go shopping, add it, edit it. Let's change it to go to the library. And here we go. Let's go and implement delete. Now to implement delete, we need to go back to our tasks app. Let's remove this pass. All we need to do is just to say self.tasks.controls.remove task. Okay? For task delete, we will be passing a task. What is a task? It is those widgets in this class. Remember, we are adding tasks one by one here whenever we click on add. And we are adding it to this tasks control. So there is an object being added from this class to this controls, right? A whole object containing all of those. Now, all I need to do to delete the task is pass the reference of this task, meaning that just pass where is this object right now, where is it located in the memory, and this control remove will take care of removing it and deleting it entirely. Now, as usual, after we do that, we just need to say self.update. Let's go back here. Here I am saying that I need to pass task delete. So here's the flow. We click on delete. When we click on delete, this function will be triggered. What will this function do? It will do a very simple thing. It will say here self.task, delete, and pass self. What are we doing here exactly? Stuff got a little bit complicated. We have our delete button, which is right here. We clicked it. It means that we will trigger the delete click method, which is this method. What does this method do is that it is taking task delete. What is task delete exactly? Well, task delete is something that I passed here when I initialized this task. Where is it coming from? It's coming from this section here. Whenever you add a click, right, you are passing it this method right here. You are just passing a method ready to be triggered, okay? So you are passing this method, and this method is actually expecting that you pass it a task. So what happens is you click on delete. Here is the method. It's standing ready, waiting for you to pass it an address so that you can delete the address of any task that you have created. The address is of any of those tasks you have created. You could have created 5 of them, right? So whenever you hit on delete, you are passing the address of where the delete is existing in which object. Okay, let's go back. We clicked on delete. We got this task delete here, and we triggered delete click, and we are passing it right now, and we are executing task delete function. We are executing the function we have passed here, and we are passing to itself. What does this mean? We are passing the address of this object right now, okay? Meaning that we are passing the address of that task simply. If you don't get it, I'm going to explain it on the blackboard. If you get it, you can skip the blackboard section. This is my app. Here I have delete, I have edit, and I have my text field. Okay, now you click on delete. In summary, this delete is going to execute delete click, which has the job of getting the address of where is this right now. So it will take, this one will take the address. Say this is address 0x0, for example. Okay, maybe we have another text here with a edit button and a delete button, which has the address. Let's say this is 0x0. This is maybe the address 0x1. Okay, so right now when we click on delete, we will be getting the address of wherever we are right now, and we will return it back. It will get it, it will grab it, and it will execute delete from control. Delete from control is going to get this address, and it's going to simply delete it. When you delete the address from the control, you will remove it from the page. Once you remove it, you are done. You have deleted it. So let us execute this, add it, delete it, and it's gone. Task 2, add, delete, and that's it. The last thing we would like to do is the alignment of our app so that it looks a little bit better. So if I execute this now, you'll see that I would like this button maybe to the far right. And let's add a task, for example. I would need also these 2 buttons to be to the far right. The way to do that is by using alignment. We have talked about alignment in the previous tutorial about Flet. So let us implement this. All we need to do is go to the row, which is here, and pass the parameter alignment. So I'm going to say here alignment is equal to, let me add a new line here. We have ft.main axis alignment, and then we are going to say space underscore between. Okay, now the space between is going to give a little bit of margin around the borders, and it's going to put a space between the elements, meaning that we'll be putting a space between the text field and the button. Let me show you quickly. Here we go. As you can see now, the button is on the far right and this is on the far left, and we still have some margin around. Okay, now I'm going to copy this and apply it to the other rows as well. We have the display view. We are going to have the same thing, and the same thing would be for the edit view. So we have our row. We have now created an alignment for the row. Let me execute this. Let's say task 1. And here we go. As you can see now, the buttons are on the far right. If I edit, the check is on the far right as well. So let's say this is task 4, click OK. And here we go. We have a nice looking tasking app. We can also change the background color. Let's try to do that. Instead of white, maybe we will use, I don't know, blue. Additionally, we can create an option to choose the color of our tasking app right here. So there is a lot more to do, but what we have learned now is how to create a widget that can be reusable. And this can be the basis of creating UI applications. Now you know what this reusability is, and you can see how useful it is when we have widgets. Every widget will be like a living creature that can implement methods on its own. If we wanted to build the same thing with functions, the code would be a real mess, and well, it will be really hard to maintain or scale. I hope that you have enjoyed this section, and see you later.